Yay.
Hi, Marshall. Hi, Cindy.
Hi there. How are you?
Good.
Good. Do you want us on this early or should I
You
get
can
off and wait?
you can just you can mute yourself and turn off the camera until it's your turn. I'll share the agenda with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Jacob. You good to go, Jared?
Okay.
Bella again. How's it going? I'm just sleeping.
Are you here or over there?
There.
Oh, okay.
With that health environment.
But we served in the same ones. It's not.
Just the one I think, yeah.
Sonia, do you by any chance have Signal?
On my phone?
Yeah. You know what that is?
That's fine.
Do I have? Oh, Signal,
Signal
the,
app?
yes.
You do? Hey,
Or yeah.
you wanna come on this side?
Thank you. I think I can squeeze in. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. Did you need it, Jen?
You don't need
Alright. Thank you.
It was, I was planning on asking right after the meeting ends to see if we could do like chat for the committee, cause I know it's easier to post. Three,
Thank you.
or four with Marshall. This one.
Does Marshall count towards quorum? No, right?
And,
I don't think
that's a good
so.
question.
I don't think so. I think he's
He's public member, so I don't
Mhm.
think so. I mean, I have the directory here, I can text you. Let's see. Still 7 minutes left.
yeah, definitely.
But, I'm gonna ask Paula to share this with me, sort of like in an Excel, but they gave me this thing.
Oh,
I'm like, really? So I had to do this
That's
to look
so
at, I had
funny.
to do this to go through everyone's emails, and look at the other sheet.
oh my god.
And I still kept getting somebody's email wrong, and I kept having to forward it.
Oh
I'm like,
my
damn it, I
gosh.
typed it wrong.
It's funny.
I remember at the looking, they shared an Excel file, so I don't know why they did that.
What program is that? I
I have
don't know.
no idea. I just asked them for it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you should be sharing this with all the chair.
Yeah. If you share with me, like, if I've got downtime, I can start transferring.
Cool. Well, we should have
This
that
is,
email, so I'll do a sort of,
Share.
hang on a minute.
Hi, folks. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes to see who else might trickle in, but we'll get started very soon. Thank you.
Just do one.
Good evening, everybody. I think we'll get started and folks can join us as they trickle in. So we will call the meeting to order at 7:05. Oh, we've got a couple folks, so we'll just wait 30 more seconds to let them get seated.
You guys can second it.
How are you? Good, thank you. How are you guys? All right, so 7:05, we're calling this meeting to order, and thank you all for being here, whether it's in person or joining us via the live stream. We really appreciate it. I was actually just talking with our vice chair, and we'll introduce ourselves. And it should be a relatively short meeting because we don't have any elected representatives joining us today. So I say we kick off with a round of introductions. My name is Indiana Porta, and I will be serving as committee chair this year. And I'm just really excited to be able to contribute a little bit more to this committee and to work together and see what we can do to raise awareness about existing resources in our community and also raise awareness about resources that we're missing. And we can do that through connecting with CBOs and connecting with our community-based organizations, with our elected leaders, and hopefully making sure that we do a lot of follow-up, because I think, we always have a lot of good ideas, and I think one of the goals that we've got for this year is to kind of stay on top of next steps and follow through. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll let my vice chair introduce himself.
Hey everyone, Jay Byers. I've been with the board, this is my second term, or finishing up my second term. I think we started together.
Yeah.
And I was born and raised in Washington Heights all my life, and I still live here. Now I live in Inwood, and I'll pass it off to Sonia.
Hola, my name is Sonia Figueroa Pagan, but soon to be Trujillo, taking back my maiden name, and excited about that. This is my second year, thank you, Tanisha. This is my second year on the board, and I am really looking forward to us being proactive and, coming up with solutions to the problems that we have in our community. Coming up with solutions, because the problems are becoming acute, and talking about it is just not enough anymore.
I completely agree.
You can go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sept. This is my first year. Yay! Yes, I'm really happy and excited and honored to be here. And I agree with
Sonia.
yes, Sonia and the chair. And I feel it's vital and important for us to engage more in the community, and that's why I took the steps to be here. So again, happy, honored, and excited to push forward and help in any way possible. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Stefan De Jesus, also a new member to the board.
Yay!
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the work of this committee. I work in city government, so I'm hoping that I can apply some of that knowledge to the work that we do.
I'm so sorry.
No, all good, don't worry. And none of us are strangers to all of the issues that we face, not only in our committee or our community, but at the city, as a whole. So I look forward to the work that we do.
Great.
Good evening, everybody. I don't know if I should be looking here or looking here. Good, everybody. My name is Radia Barnes. I am a lifelong Washington Heights resident. I live on the lower Washington Heights in the 150s. This is my second term on the community board. I work in workforce development, and I'm also on the business development committee, which I've really been enjoying. And I look forward to, as everyone has mentioned, really kind of digging in early, getting some great resolutions in early, making some progress, getting things done. So I'm excited about this year, looking forward to working with you, and we'll see how things progress.
Thank you. Got folks
You
on.
want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Viola. I don't sit on this committee, but I am the first vice chair of the board. Housing was the one committee I didn't get to sit in on last season. So really excited to sit on this committee meeting, especially with our brand new chair, which is really exciting. So have a good meeting.
Thank you. Folks online?
Do we want to? We could start with Marshall.
Marshall?
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Marshall.
I'm Marshall Vanderpool. I am the public member of the Housing and Human Services Committee. A little bit about my background. I am a former first vice president of the Dyckman Resident Association. Probably served in that capacity the better part of 20 years. No longer with them, but I'm still trying to speak for my residents. And I'll land my plane right here. Let's have a good meeting.
And we can go to Tanisha. You want to introduce yourself?
Why, yes. Thank you, Jay. So, hey, y'all, I'm Tanisha. I am the second vice chair of the community board. and I feel like I'm an honorary member of housing because I sat on housing for all my time on the community board. I also came in with Jay and India, and I just love to see us. For you new people, love to see us come in and take leadership. This could be y'all. Um, but housing and human services is very important to me, is very important to the work that I do as a super volunteer and community organizer, like on the ground every day. So I'm happy to be here. I am the vice chair of the Education and Youth Committee, and I also am now on the Public Safety Committee because I felt like I needed to be there. But I'm very excited for Indiana, and for Jay. I think Indiana is going to be great in this position, in this leadership position, and I will continue to do all of the things as an invite guests and all of the, all of the plugs that I have are always your plugs. So know that I will be here to support you and making sure that we can be proactive because housing is a big thing and so are human services. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Tanisha.
And we have Wayne is also here. We have a lot of members here today.
Hi, good evening. Wayne Benjamin. I am not on this committee. I chair the Land Use Committee, and I've been on CB 12 for a number of years. Glad to see us, back in session and looking forward to this meeting. Take care.
Thanks, Wayne.
And then I'll call on, so the folks on here, Cindy is from the Inwood Community Services, part of the adult literacy program, and her team they can introduce themselves when they present. But for now, I think we can just go straight. We have
Peter from.
Yeah. We can go straight to the monthly updates from elected officials. Because we have Peter. Peter, if you want to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and if there's any updates you want to share with us.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to the chair of the committee for having me. I am Peter Williamson from Assemblymember Manny Dos Santos's office. I look forward to being at the next meeting in person. Unfortunately, I'm in between events, so I'm outside. That's why my camera's not on. There may be some background noise. I apologize for that. I did definitely want to make an update because I wanted to let this committee know, with other relevant committees, that the Assemblymember's office will be holding a press conference next Saturday, not this coming one, the 13th of September, on the topic of Mitchell-Lamba funding. Mitchell-Lamba housing is an important piece of the housing puzzle in the district. We have secured a large quantity of dollars, both capital and operational funds for the Mitchell-Lambas in the district. And in addition, the Assembly member will be announcing his piece of legislation that he's going to put forward for the session next year regarding making funding available for the Mitchell-Lambas at low interest rates, with the proviso that the Mitchell-Lambas that take this funding will keep their maintenance increases low and reasonable in order to keep the residents and the long-term shareholders and the tenants of those buildings in their housing as was intended when the Mitchell-Lamba program was first, put into law. So there is a flyer, there is going to be a press release, there's going to be more information, and I just wanted to come and make this announcement to the committee, and then maybe possibly email over some of that information following this meeting so that we can keep the Housing Committee up to date and in the loop on all the progress. So if anybody has questions or anything that they'd like to raise, topics that we can report on in future, I'd be happy to take questions or suggestions or feedback.
Great, thank you.
Is there any questions for him? Comments? No. I have a quick question for you, Peter. So you said you brought in a lot of funding for the district for Mitchell-Lambas. do you know what the total of that was and whether is it only capital or is it capital and operational?
The total amount will be announced at the press conference. I'm not allowed to say it just yet, but it is substantial and it is for both capital and operational funding. So both.
Great.
When is that press conference?
Sure. It is September 13th. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you where. That's also important. September 13th at 12 p.m. at 45 Fairview at Inwood Gardens. So one of the Michelamas in the district. They're a large terrace that they have the space in front, plenty of room. So there'll be, hopefully we'll be drawing a large crowd. We have some folks coming from some Michelama community organizing and advocacy groups as well. So they'll, it's still in development, it's close, but it's still, we're still working the event, but it should be September 13th, 12 p.m., 45 Fairview at Inwood Gardens. And everyone on this committee is welcome, obviously. And if there's a QR code on the flyers that I can send over afterwards that, takes you to a link with more information.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No one online has any questions? And then we can.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When we say Michelama, right, which is a beautiful program, do we know, like, when we say funding it, right, do we know, like, who will low income people, let me say that, have a chance to take advantage of this with this new bill?
Well, the funding is intended to keep maintenance increases. Well, the legislation, not the funding. The legislation that the Assembly member will be proposing is intended to keep maintenance increases low and reasonable in order to maintain the working, lower, and middle income residents of Michelamas in their current apartments, keep them in the housing that they're currently in. We take suggestions for expanding the program further. Absolutely would love to have that conversation. But the main intent of the legislation is in order to keep the maintenance increases manageable and reasonable, because there have been significant maintenance increases recently in several Michelamas that are affecting the long-term deep affordability of the program.
Thank you, Peter. I got it.
Thank you. All right.
If there's no more questions, thank you so much, Peter, for joining us and sharing that. If you have the board staff email, if not, I can put it in the chat while the next folks presenting. That way you can send over that information.
And Peter, I have a request to, so my background is immigrant affairs, and obviously I've seen the Assembly member out just being very supportive of our immigrant community, and I would just like, please, if there's anything that you're hearing about, events or resources, please keep those coming our way, so that we can talk about them and highlight them, kind of among our networks, because I know that folks are really scared, and even scared to go, I guess, access existing resources. They're scared to go to food banks, scared to do, a lot of things. So any ideas that you have or resources, please let us know.
Absolutely. We have Know Your Rights, like wallet-sized cards from the New York Immigration Coalition, as well as a larger guide that in multiple languages that basically gives you a playbook for how to prepare, how to be, as well prepared as anyone can be for any kind of interaction with like federal law enforcement, like what documentation, how to have backup plans, having copies, having folks who can, if God forbid you're unable to take care of your children, like it's top to bottom guide for this. So I'll see if I can get from them a digital copy to distribute, digitally as well, because we have in-person like paper copies mostly, but I'll see if we can get a digital copy as well.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, thank you, Peter, and we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, and that's monthly updates from community-based organizations. Inwood Community Services is here tonight on the Zoom, and I'll kick it off to let Cindy introduce herself and her team.
Okay, thank you so much, and it's nice meeting all of you through Zoom. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Um, my name is Sin Andriazzi. I am the director of the Adult Literacy Program at Inwood Community Services. Thank you for the opportunity to present our program to you this evening. So with me, I have three staff members, and maybe you can kind of raise your hand when I say your name because I can't really point you out on Zoom. But first, I have Veronica Martier. Veronica is an instructor with us who has been on staff for 33 years. She has a master's degree in TESOL and also teaches at Hunter College. Um, can you all see Veronica?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Pablo Valdez is also here, also one of our ESL instructors. He's been with us for 29 years. Pablo has his master's in education, was a career DOE bilingual teacher before he recently retired, but thankfully stayed with us to teach. Um, and also here is Luis Celestino, one of our two adult education counselors. Luis has his master's in higher education administration with a concentration in adult continuing education. He works with students to develop learning skills, to make learning a new language accessible to students who may not have attended school for many, many years, and in developing actionable educational, work-related, and personal goals and job readiness skills. So I've brought them here so that they may answer any questions you have from the perspective of their extensive experience working within our community. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions as well. So we four are here representing the Adult Literacy Program of Inwood Community Services, but we are actually one of the smaller programs of ICS. Our agency provides federal, state, and city-funded services to Inwood and surrounding areas, ranging from OMH licensed mental health and substance disorder clinics, family support, wellness, and prevention services, and youth programs. Our after-school programs are in 3 elementary schools and in 3 middle schools, and now actually in 1 charter school. And together we reach 700 students each year through the after-school programs. Our SYEP Summer Youth Employment Program serves over 1,000 youth ages 14 through 24 each summer. So I thought I'd first start with a kind of an overview of our program. ICS has been providing English as a second language classes for 37 years. Over those years, we have provided ESL, BENL, which is basic education in the native language, which of course in this case is Spanish, computer and health literacy programs to adults, ranging from basically 200 to 685 students annually, depending on funding availability. Our staff is passionate about literacy, and we have worked to develop classes and services for all literacy students, including some specially designed curricula for low literacy students. Of course, our primary goal is to teach ESL, but in order to do that effectively, we find that we must incorporate other programming. For example, we have 2 adult educational counselors. Luis, who is here tonight, is one of them, who work with students to identify any barriers to attendance or to learning. Our student population as an aggregate has been identified as among the lowest literacy populations in the city. Of course, taken individually, there are many exceptions to that. And education levels have risen over the 40 years that I've been in this field, but still we have students who had to leave school after 4th, 5th, 8th grade, and many students without a high school education. So we have learned that in order to offer effective instruction, we need to screen for literacy and education levels. Students who demonstrate low literacy skills in their native language are going to have a much more difficult time and to learn more slowly than other learners. So we tried to design classes grouping students together who are likely to progress at similar speeds. We also find that we often need to teach our students how to learn before they can become effective learners, which is why we build a study skills and learning strategies workshops into our programming for all our classes. To support, retain, and motivate students, we build workshops, labs, focus groups, and other activities into our program based on needs identified by our students. We have a computerized language lab where students can come to work individually with supervision to reinforce skills learned in the classroom. And this is important to students who may have variable fluctuating work schedules, or for students who just may need extra help. We had for many years before COVID a student council of student elective representatives from each of our classes. That kind of disappeared with COVID, but last year we began to redevelop that as a platform for students to communicate their needs to us, which helps us make programming decisions. And it's also served to empower students to work towards goals that they may have in common. For example, in the past, we have had a student group who met weekly in the lab studying for the citizenship exam, a GED study group, which was supervised by one of our counselors, a focus group led by a volunteer nurse for home health aides specifically to learn specific health-related vocabulary that they would need on the job, and even a theater group who wrote together a play and produced the play in English. So we often design our lab around specific student needs. For example, 3 years ago, we had a citizenship lab led by one of our counselors where students could role play the citizenship interview, learn the commonly asked questions, and be encouraged by other students who had just become citizens. Last year and the year before, Luis, who is here tonight, designed a job readiness lab for students with work-related goals where students could build resumes, learn how to navigate searching for work, and generally improve their job readiness skills. In terms of outcomes for our program, we did a 5-year analysis and found that we exceeded our enrollment contractual requirements by 126% over the 5-year period. The primary outcome for adult literacy programs is for 58% of students to make educational gain each year. That raises their ESL skill levels at least one level. So an average of 64% of our students made level gain over 5 years. And last year, our educational gain, which was actually 75%, which is unusually high and probably given the unusual circumstances of that year for us. Over that same period, we were given city audit grades of above standard or far above standard in 75% of our audits. Last year, we received 3 far above standards, including our end of year outcomes evaluation and 1 above standard. So that's kind of a thumbnail description of our program. And I guess I've given this to you in some amount of detail because I hope you can see that we try to offer comprehensive programming to support our students specifically through the process of learning a new language, but also generally, just support them generally. Here. We've been continuously funded by the city for 37 years, even in lean, very competitive times, primarily by NYCALI, which is the New York City Adult Literacy Initiative, and secondarily by the Literacy and Immigration Services ESL Civics Program. So now the bad news, which is that we've been largely defunded. In fiscal year 2024, the city rolled both those funding streams into one pot and issued an RFP, which restricted adult literacy funding to certain NTAs or neighborhood tabulation areas. Inexplicably, at least to us, Inwood was not one of the 8 Manhattan NTAs selected for literacy funding. We were told that the city used an algorithm based on 2 factors, the number of people living in each NTA who reported speaking English less than very well, and the average income levels of residents. So Inwood apparently met the first criteria, which is having a number of people speaking English less than well, but apparently did not meet the income level criteria. And as we know, there's a pocket west of Broadway where income levels on the average are higher than income levels east of Broadway. And I guess apparently that skewed the results. Um, but also, I looked at the data which the RFP referenced, which was based on the last census, and to me, it did not appear to be accurate for Inwood. For example, the data put the average occupancy rate of each dwelling in Inwood at 2.3 people. And we know that our students often live in multifamily apartments, housing many more than two people. We also know that our students are often not counted in the census. They may not have legitimate leases. And when the census comes around, their landlords have an incentive not to report them as part of their household. So a look at the data leads me to believe that those who made the decisions about literacy funding did not have a real picture of Inwood. And as anyone who is familiar with Inwood knows, there is a critical need for ESL services here. So this RFP stated that any agency with an address within the identified NTA would be given priority for funding over any other agency applying for funding, even if their scores were lower. Even so, we applied to provide service to Northern Washington Heights because our building is located one block from Dyckman Street, which is the northern border of Northern Washington Heights. We were hoping to serve both Washington Heights and Inwood, but we were not selected. And I was told by the then Assistant Commissioner of the Literacy Unit of DYCD, who has since retired, that this was because of our address. So suddenly, in 2024, we lost the bulk of our literacy funding. And since we, to the best of my knowledge, were the largest provider of ESL classes in Inwood, this was a fairly large loss in services also for the community of Inwood. To put that in perspective, for fiscal year 24, we offered 10 DYCD-funded ESL and EL civics classes ranging from 8 months to 1 year in length to 330 students with DYCD and supplemental discretionary funding, totaling $375,000. For fiscal year 25 and for this year, we have a small NDA program which officially services 103 students, which is, of course, less than 1/3 of our former level. Because of the great need, we stretched the funding last year to provide classes actually to 170 students, but we did operate in the red to do that. Fortunately, our ICS board was okay with that, given the situation, but we certainly won't be able to do that every year. Also, with the help of Carmen de la Rosa and the then Assistant Commissioner of the Literacy Unit of DYCD, who spoke up recommending funding for us at a critical meeting with the council, we were giving additional discretionary funding for an additional $124,000. So we now have a total funding of approximately $253,000, which of course leaves a shortfall of $122,000 from 2024 levels, which in itself was not really sufficient to provide adequate ESL services for Inwood. So, what do we need? First, and as a minimum, we need the city to recognize that there is indeed a need, in fact, a great need, for adult literacy, ESL, and EL civics classes in Inwood. And it's a legitimate need. And this is where you may be able to help. The mayor's office and those making funding decisions don't necessarily understand the needs in each different area of the city. They certainly don't know Inwood as you would, or those of us who live and work here do. And at least for the purposes of this RFP, Inwood appeared to have been reduced to an algorithm. And from what I was able to determine, probably an inaccurate algorithm at that. In terms of additional funding needs, this is kind of a loaded question, particularly right now. The city currently funds the NDA program at approximately $1,250 per student. A massive study in 2019 undertaken by the Literacy Assistance Center which is an advocacy organization well respected in the city, into the true costs of building a quality adult education literacy program, recommended an investment of $7,400 per student slot for 400 hours of instruction and connected support. We can assume that costs have only gone up since the study was done in 2019. But using this figure as a benchmark, because this really was the best study that's been done to date. Since we typically give our students 135 hours of instruction per class, if we do the math, that would mean an investment of almost $2,500 per student slot, which is, of course, double the level that the city currently funds. And as much as we try to do to support our students, there is so much more that we could do with this level of investment, which would allow us to implement real case management to follow up with each student individually to support them in defining and pursuing and obtaining their educational, work-related, and personal goals, to increase student engagement and retention, to increase educational gains, to increase student support services, increase digital literacy skills, workforce preparation, and connections.
Cindy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just had one question.
Sure.
What is the current funding amount per student?
It's about $1,250 per
Thank you.
student. So at 2,500, it would be essentially double that.
Thank you.
In terms of a dollar amount for additional funding that we would request this year, based on the political climate, I would certainly estimate much more conservatively than I would have in other years. We've got feedback from a number of students that they are too afraid to participate in classes at the moment, although some would if the classes were remote. But unfortunately, the NDA funding that we have does not support remote classes. If I were able to run remote classes, I would say that conservatively, we could enroll 120 additional students this year, ideally at the $2,500 per student slot range, which would be an investment of $300,000, or $150,000 based on the rate that the city is currently paying. And I do want to stress that this is a very conservative estimate, which would allow us to serve 223 students this year, which is much, much less than the 330 students we served last year and the 358 the year before that. And of course, the many, many, many people who need ESL services in Inwood. But honestly speaking, it's very tricky to gauge numbers this year, given the political situation. In terms of service commitments, I would rather work my way up slowly as we see the fallout this year. We just had one student, actually one of our best students, who was coming to class 4 times a week last year, plus also coming to the lab, who went to his immigration appointment and never came back. So I'm inclined to be very conservative this year. Ideally, we would like to see funding that supports flexible programming, such as remote instruction for reasons that I've just given, and flexible scheduling because our low literacy students require more instructional hours than generally available. Also, I talked about the work we have done to try to serve low literacy students. But the reality is that it is getting harder and harder to run true low literacy classes, even though the need is still there, because some of the city outcome requirements are too stringent for these classes. For example, there's an average daily attendance requirement of 12 to 18 students for ESL classes. When the city actually funded us we're actually funding us for low literacy classes. The average daily requirement for those classes was 8 to 12 students, which is much more realistic because a low literacy student generally needs a lot more individualized instruction and attention. So more funding, flexible programming, remote instruction, a lower ADA for low literacy classes, and primarily recognition that even if we aren't the ones funded, Inwood, the community of Inwood deserves literacy funding. And to end, I just want to say that I think, as we all know, speaking English is one of the great equalizers for immigrants to our country and often contributes to increasing literacy rates across generations. And studies have shown that increasing generational literacy contributes greatly to increasing economic levels in families. So I appreciate you listening to this, and anything that you can do, not only to help us, but also to help the community of Inwood to get additional ESL and adult literacy services would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Cindy and her team?
Do we have a similar resource in the Heights?
Yes. Yes, I mean, Washington Heights was divided into two NTAs, Northern Washington Heights and Southern Washington Heights, and both were funded. They were recognized as NTAs that deserve to get ESL literacy funding. What is interesting to me is that when you look at the statistics for people who have identified as speaking English less than well, the statistics for Washington Heights and Inwood are almost identical, with Inwood having just very, very slightly higher rates of statistics across all ethnicities. And again, apparently where we fell short was in some algorithm that rated poverty levels and income levels. But yes, Washington Heights was funded.
I have a question about the programming. You mentioned that I guess a cycle or a level of the instruction is about 8 to 10 or 12 months, you mentioned. Is that right?
Yes, generally we run classes from September through June. Last year happened to be kind of um, a different year in that we had a bunch of entering students the year before that had come in very late in the year. They had come in April of the year before. And because they had been given so few services, I really wanted to support them through the summer. So we normally don't offer summer classes because a lot of our students go away, and it's very hard to fill them up. But because this was a group of very enthusiastic students who had entered the program late, we ran a summer class for them. So they were actually in a class for a full year, and they maintained their attendance throughout the entire year, which was kind of incredible.
That's great. And the follow-up question to that, and I guess, or the reason I'm asking is because you mentioned that about 58% at least of the students, like that's the goal to have them advance to the next level.
Right.
What are the main things that keep students from being able to like achieve that? Is it that like life events pop up and so they have to drop out of the program completely? Is it that they need more hands-on and maybe like a slower pace? Like, I'm sure it's a mix of things, but like, what would be, I think, like maybe the two top reasons why folks don't finish or don't advance to the next level?
Yeah, I think that you've really hit the nail on the head. I mean, the first reason, the largest reason that we see is that students can't stay in the program. And when we ask them why, it's largely because of their work schedules. I mean, our students mostly work, which is why we offer evening classes, and they may not have set and steady work schedules, so they're always changing. Um, so that's the largest reason. Um, and the other reason is that, you know, students, there are some students that need to progress very, very slowly through this program. I mean, if you imagine a student, you know, who hasn't been to school since eighth grade, fourth, fifth, eighth grade, you know, I barely remember my study skills. So, you know, students need a lot of support. And we want to give that support, but that does take time and it takes resources.
And then my final question is about the funding cycle. So the grant that you mentioned that you lost,
Right.
is that like every year you have to reapply, or is it a multi-year? When would be the next?
They are multi-year, they're multi-year RFPs. This one is at least on paper is for 3 years. But you know, the last RFP that we, or the last, well, I guess the last RFP that we were awarded through the city, it was on paper set to go for 3 years, and we were funded through it for 10 years. So this one could last actually for a long time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Tanisha.
Oh, Tanisha, you had a question?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. So forgive me if I missed it, but in teaching children to speak, I mean teaching community members to speak English, is this across all ethnicities?
Yes, it is. I mean, yes, it is. The for our program, we find that, you know, primarily we have a Latino population, and so that's, you know, our students are primarily Latinos, but yes, it's certainly open to all ethnicities.
Thank you.
Cindy, just for clarification, what does NTA stand for?
Apparently it's, and I didn't know this term either before the RFP. Apparently it stands for Neighborhood Tabulation Area. It was the first time I had seen this.
Largely used for the census and other like federal work. I have a question, Cindy. You had mentioned that formerly council member De La Rosa's office was helpful, and that
Yes.
there also used to be an assistant commissioner at DYCD that was helpful but is no longer there. Is
Yeah.
there anyone else that you're in contact with currently that you know would be helpful for us to know about?
Well, it's kind of an interesting time for the literacy unit at DYCD because Ron Zhang, who had been with the program for many, many years and whom I worked with, or I mean, as an agency, worked with for 30 years, he just retired. And so they're kind of in flux. And I guess from what I understand, he's not being replaced. And so actually not just we, the NDA programs have been farmed out to another location in DYCD. So we've left, you know, I've worked with the literacy unit of DYCD for close to 40 years now. We're kind of an orphan at this point, and we're with another part of DYCD. And when I did talk to the supervisor of that unit, um, she just said that this probably is temporary and that we may go back to literacy, which is clearly where we belong. And I personally feel that it's probably because this RFP, it was really problematic the way it was written, and I think I think they're just having a lot of trouble implementing it, essentially. So they need their time for that. As far as someone you can talk to, I think Kathy Almasar, she, more than anybody else, although she hasn't been given the title of that Brong had, I think that she's really kind of spearheading the unit at this point. But as I said, we're kind of no longer with them. So.
One more question. What was the stated reason that DYCD gave for switching and doing like the neighborhood tabulation area and that criteria, the 2 point, did they provide any reason? Is it just like they're trying to like go to, I guess, the poorest area with the highest need, or were there other reasons? The reason I ask is because I'm curious if it's tied to like changes in federal or state funding that then trickled down, or if it was just some other reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the RFP, they talked about wanting to kind of standardize, they wanted to standardize an algorithm so that they could um, provide the service in the areas that had the most need.
And do
But
you,
but given, as I said, given the within the RFP, there was a link to the data that they used to make these decisions. And when I looked at that data for Inwood, it really did not seem accurate to me at all.
and do you find that the students that you've served do live in the community? Because I remember, back when I was in nonprofit, right, I had a client who went to her adult literacy classes close to her work.
Right.
And so I didn't know if that similar, experience.
Yes, it does. Um, we pull students from, of course, from Inwood, from Washington Heights, from down, maybe from about 123rd Street up. And because of where we're located, at the tip of Manhattan, we actually pull a lot of students from the Bronx.
And that
And
doesn't help towards your tabulation or towards meeting like the qualification requirements for the funding. To show that you have students from Washington Heights that has been declared like a high need area, that doesn't help.
apparently not.
Okay.
You know,
All
I
right.
mean,
Thank
it
you.
really the whole process by which they made these decisions was really shrouded in secrecy, and the whole RFP was so confusedly written in some ways. And I mean, I've never seen so many addendums come out for an RFP. And even when we applied, we really had no idea about whether we were going to be even considered because the writing was so. At one point, they came and said, "Okay, if you live within a half a mile with the of the stated, you can apply." But still, the provision that anybody with an address in the neighborhood itself, even if they got a lower score in the RFP, was going to get more priority. I mean, you just don't really know where you stand. And
Got it.
apparently, we didn't stand where we were hoping we would stand.
Gotcha. Any more questions?
Questions from anyone else? Cindy, I appreciate you coming and sharing this, and thank you for your instructors and counselor for joining. I think the only thing I would say is that I would like to follow up on some of the like more detailed granular stuff, sort of understanding if there's a copy of the RFP, sort of to look into what the specific part of the city funding is for these programs. And we spoke previously, and thank you for coming and explaining this to folks. I want people to hear that fact that just because of the way they designed the RFP, they were disqualifying even though they had 40 years of experience doing the same program. And from my understanding, your executive director had told me that the mayor visited your programs and wanted to replicate that. So it's just a little weird.
Well, I mean, I think I mean, I gave you a lot of detail and I apologize if it was too much, but I think part of what I'm trying to give you a picture of is that we were kind of a highly rated program in the city. I mean, we were funded even during the years when they funded only 14 programs in the entire city. We've been consistently funded, and there was really no reason for us not to be refunded. And I to this day, I don't understand why they would not fund Inwood. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with you for more details to share.
Great, thank you,
On the budgetary side and RFP.
thank you. And I don't know if any of my staff who came has anything to add, but I wanted them here in case you had questions that they may wanted to have answered. But thank you. I really appreciate you even considering what we have to say, and any help that you can give clearly will not only help us, but since we were really providing the bulk of VSL services for Inwood, it helped Inwood as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Likewise.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming. You can hang out and listen to us, or you can go back to your lives. Because we're just gonna keep going down the agenda. And then
Okay.
I just and for the folks, for the members, I wanted you to hear that because we're gonna go through our sort of recommendations as a committee for housing and human services. And yeah, these are just, I asked for, following up with the board staff, because I wanted the actual Excel for us that we submitted, so you guys can actually have it as an Excel. I wanted to hear that because we're gonna work on this together, probably in the next meeting. And part of that is us deciding what we wanna recommend to be funded for our community board. And knowing a little bit about budgets, right, there's a total pot for something, RFPs can be created to exclude people or include people. But if we advocate for more funding, and we use our board effectively to actually advocate for the organizations that actually serve our community, and can tell us what the actual needs are, those are the things we should be considering. For a couple of years I've been here, the first year I had a big problem because what people were doing was recycling the same budget requests. The board staff was not following up on with the agencies, like, was this funded? Yes, no. Was any money dedicated to any programs in Community Board 12? Yes, no. None of that's been happening. And that's something I want to change for this board. So I did want you to hear that. And we'll have more of a conversation later down on the agenda when we talk about budget requests.
And I think adding on to that, I would also like to have, for example, somebody from DYCD come and like update us. So it's not, just us kind of reaching out, like, come and tell us, look, these are the 3 things that we said we were gonna fund, here's where we are, or, give us the opportunity to ask why something didn't get funded so that the next year we can amend our request. I think adding on to what Jay was saying, like, I would like to add a little bit more detail so that, and maybe like looking back at some of the things that did get approved or did not get approved to kind of like narrow down if we want like to set targets for how many new students do you want to engage, or if we want to highlight like, potentially the difference between existing pots of funding and allocating funding that has different eligibility requirements, right? So if you're mainly going to fund through one program, but we see that people in our neighborhood are getting excluded, like, and maybe not, but can we advocate for like a separate pot of funding that has different eligibility criteria? Like trying to get a little bit more creative. I'd like to explore that.
And so for the next agenda, we're gonna go to old business. For some of you who are new to this committee, Fort Washington Collegiate Church. I have some emails with this group. There was a question they asked a while back.
But we should give a little bit of background for it.
Yeah, so the Fort Washington Collegiate Church is on 181st Street in Fort Washington. they offer their space for a lot of other programmings as well. And I guess like it's a conglomerate in a sense. There's a parent company that decided, they just want to get rid of the property, they want to sell it, they don't care. Regardless of all the programming that they offer within the facility or the church. And I just wanted to bring that up because I don't feel like we had properly addressed everything with them. From the last I heard, the chair has decided that this is not an issue we can weigh in on. I do have some form of disagreement. I think there's something we can do, and that's advocate on their behalf, maybe to the Attorney General, because they had mentioned this, where they're a charity, the Attorney General could investigate charities, like, how is this, was this done legally? So I wanted to bring that up for discussion.
They closed, right? They closed down already.
I think they were extended for a period of time. I'm not
Right.
sure that they fully closed, because there was some like advocacy
Yeah, I saw
throughout
that.
like June and May.
Aren't they a historical landmark?
I don't know.
They are.
What was a little surprising for me even more is that I used to live around there, so I've always, and they recently got like capital dollars as a couple of years ago, and they renovated.
Right.
And now they're losing.
It's huge.
So I'm like, why, we funded something to renovate, and they provide other programming for other services for people in the community. So I think, if everyone's okay, I would like to motion to, possibly do a resolution as long as the chair and the executive board is still okay with doing something along those lines. But after I communicate with the person, I have an email with the person, because they've been following up. And I wanna actually address that.
What would the resolution state, more or less?
If we can go down this line of what I'm thinking, it would just be a resolution to support their effort in at least investigating this issue with the AG. So it
To
would be,
make sure
it
it's
would,
done in a proper
it would
way.
direct the board staff to communicate with the AG, and ask them if this is something they can investigate.
Is this something that the members of the church have requested in particular?
They didn't request it, but from the last meeting that we had and they were here, they had mentioned it. And so, because I believe the executive board had decided not to, they didn't wanna weigh in specifically in the aspect of, because separation of church and state. So that's the way the chair saw it, which I agree in that sense. But I think this other way of advocating for them by asking the AG to at least look into it is okay.
And we're asking them to look into what specifically?
The process by which the parent company had decided to, yes.
One thing to add here is when that decision was made in the executive committee, it didn't arise from a committee vote. So if this committee votes to do what you're saying tonight, all diplomatically, it makes sense, of course, to the chair and the rest of the executive committee, you don't have to. Once you guys vote, it goes right to the board for a vote.
Yeah.
So the board ultimately will make the decision. But I take your point, yes, the executive committee in I think May or June, whatever month it was, decided not to take action for the reasons you just stated.
Yes.
Aren't they one of like 4 churches in the city of New York? Cause it's not a corporation, it's a denomination.
I don't know that they have other churches not in the city of New York. Just from the last time they had talked to us, they had in different states.
I do think though that they've got others. I think they mentioned one in Chelsea and I
Is it
forgot where the
one of 4?
I think
in
it's
New
one
York?
of 4, yeah, and that my understanding, if I recall correctly, was that they were, I think, having some financial trouble or something, and so they were choosing one of the 4 locations to close.
Yeah.
And I think I remember them saying that they had already had like it's been a years long process, I guess, to show both sides of, at least as far as I know, that the managing body of the church and the 4 properties had already kind of given notice that things were, trouble financially. And so they had started to look at opportunities of, finding some sort of nonprofit developer to see if they took interest in the property. But I think they just kind of ran out of time. And so that was another one of their asks was, can you just give us a little bit more time because we, have found somebody who might be interested, but it's just, we don't have time to like flesh it out. So that may be also something else that we can consider for the reso.
I believe their congregation has decreased tremendously.
Yeah. Well, let me follow with the person first, and if they're still interested in us, sort of advocating for someone to look into this scenario and make sure everything is done properly, and then we can.
And I also believe they're a landmark, you may wanna check into that.
If they're a landmark, they can.
Yeah, they have
Do
a
much with
George
the
Washington plaque there.
I'm sure they would have mentioned it though, because they have spoken on so many different committees, they've been in the general meeting, last year they were like everywhere, so I'm
Even
sure
I've
we would
heard
have.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would have mentioned.
But just as a point of information, the church is not landmarked.
Okay,
Thank you.
maybe that's something they should look into.
And, at the land use committee early this year, there was some discussion of this, and it was pointed out that even if the Landmarks Preservation Commission would, agree to consider the designation, landmark designation can take, 6 to 9 years, and that's considered fast. And, landmark preservation has not been overly active in designating anything in CB12 or in Uptown, to tell you the truth. It's been a battle. But I just wanted to chime in that, there's been discussion to see if the church was in fact landmarked, that it is not.
Well, that's pretty sad because they do have history with George Washington.
Thank you.
The plaque is on their building.
We'll see. Alright, well, if everyone's okay with that, I'll follow up with the person first and see if I get responses, and then next meeting, if there's any action to take, I'll bring it up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And then we're gonna go to new business, and for new business, there's 3 topics. The first one being community organizations to invite. I had asked board staff if they have a directory of organizations in our district. I haven't gotten a response yet. Cause I thought we had like a Airtable or something like that, but I can't find it. But to that point, the reason I'm asking for that is to see organizations that cover sort of the space our committee covers to invite to actually speak, like Cindy did, sort of to the needs of the community that they serve, which is our community board, and what they're seeing on the ground, what they actually need, sort of us to advocate and funding for. The goal is to make this expense budget ranking that we submit to the city or the board or the borough president board, to make it more of a legitimate list, a list where we're not seen as a joke when you repeat the same thing over and over, no one cares. So that's the goal.
And the more details we can put in, right?
Yes.
The more we can then ask specific questions for follow-up.
Did they respond to this survey?
I have no idea. I asked the board staff. Normally, and I had shared with you folks, the budget requests that we had ranked last year that we gave to the board. And then, I also shared sort of an IPO presentation. They're gonna come and present at our general board meeting later this month, being that we have to do this process, and I thought it would be good for all the folks to understand how the city budget works. And
That's in the email that you sent?
yeah, there's a link to a webinar that I did that's like a deeper dive for 1 hour that is very useful if you're into it. They'll do like a 10-minute version of that at the general board meeting, and then answer questions for everybody. And they offer like throughout the year those trainings, and if you guys want a specific one for us, we can request that, and we'll see if they can accommodate. So that being said, if anybody here has ideas of organizations you want to invite, please share those if you have a contact or maybe an organization you work for or organizations you work with in the work you do, sort of to share all their programming services, what their budget needs are, right? Because the federal cuts are coming, we're gonna get hit hard, both at the state level and God knows what this government will do as a response. So she'll either cut even more to be able to cover some things, but that will also impact the city's budget. And so this is the moment we need to think about what are the top priorities, what do the organizations that serve our community see that is actually needed, and what causes the least amount of harm to people.
One of the things or the groups that I would like to invite are some of the tenants associations, to just get a sense of like what they do and some of the issues that they're working on or how they accomplish certain goals, to raise more awareness, because, you know, most folks haven't heard, I think, of tenant associations. And so if we can have like an intro to tenant associations and have, you know, that available for others in the community, I think that would be something that falls directly under our committee. And then the other thing, which I think I would love to do for personal reasons, is like something about accessible housing, and inviting, you know, maybe organizations that work on that. You know, when I became a wheelchair user, I lived on the first floor, but I couldn't get into my building. And so looking for accessible housing, and also things like accountability, right? I live in a building that has an elevator, and there are lots of times, and there's another wheelchair user in the building where we're like, oh, we can't get downstairs, like the elevator's not working. So I would love to know, what are my rights? Is there some sort of like window where if we file a report, like the elevator should be fixed within X amount of hours or days?
Yes.
So some sort of.
And just to that point, before we go to Tanisha, if you still have more. Elevators, I've done organizing housing issues for a long time. In New York City, those are called hazardous violations. Those are violations that a landlord needs to fix within 24 hours.
All right, I learned something tonight.
Those are called, they're C violations. HPD will fine them for that. So call 311 and HPD. You have to call 311, you need a reference number for them to there are cases, I mean, this is when I was doing it back then, it was a little worse with the landlords, where they pay off the investigators that come, or the investigators close it because they can't get access to the building, but they don't actually schedule time with nobody to come visit and actually file about it. So those type of issues exist. I'm not saying that they exist now, because this was when I was doing it. But those are hazards. That's 24 within 24 hours they're supposed to fix it.
I mean, and that's awesome, right? Like in a matter of 90 seconds, I learned something. So I feel like, you know, bringing them in would be great. And I also just think that, for example, all the housing that's being developed, when people come to us to get community board support, that's something that I definitely want to highlight. And just little things like lived experiences, right, that I didn't know before I became a wheelchair user. I know that a lot of the accessible housing that's like required into some of the building projects tend to be studios, and like I need more space, not less, because I've got my chair, and then I've got another chair, and then I've got, you know, all sorts of things. So little things like that I'd like to flesh out. So I throw it out there, possibly like a joint meeting or session with the disability committee of our board.
Yeah, you should talk to Wayne about not allowing studios being built here.
Yeah.
We need more 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms for families. That
3
actually wanna
bedrooms.
stay here.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I would like to see us address substance abuse, maybe facilities or treatment centers, counseling, and I guess that goes a little bit hand in hand with mental health as well. I've just seen such an explosion of issues in Washington Heights and Inwood, with, drug overdoses, people on the streets. So I don't know if we need to bring more attention to what is available within our community to help address it. So maybe bringing in some people from the facilities, counselors, definitely, try to flesh it out and see who's available. But I know we were supposed to have gotten someone last year and they had to reschedule, we never rescheduled them again, so maybe we can have that this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have there's a overdose prevention center actually in Washington Heights. There's only 2 locations that exist. There's one in Harlem and in Washington Heights. These are the ones where they
Is that the
let
methadone clinic?
no, this is where they let the users come in with their own drugs. They bring them, they test the drugs, they let them use safely and monitor, but they provide wraparound services. They got anything from clinic, wound care, I visited these, so I know a lot about them. And one of the amazing things, because it's right around the corner where my mom lives, and
Where is it?
during the 180th Street in Amsterdam. It's right across the street from a playground where the users used to always go. Now they don't. They go inside the facility and see them. They use.
Is that what point?
On point there. That's one of the facilities. They're still operating, and they do good work. Like one of the sort of stuff they have said that they've seen over time is that most people now come to hang out instead of use. It is good, right? And if you talk to people in this space that do harm reduction and stuff, they'll tell you when they interact, most of the people use, but there's a large portion that's homeless, but there's a large portion that have their own homes, but they don't have a community to use with. So they go outside to do that. Yeah. And so now they're just doing that inside a facility, hanging out. They get free food, showers, laundry for the homeless folks. They offer, if someone's ready for treatment, they go to treatment. They have studies out, recent studies about them. They partner with a lot of the organizations, the treatment centers and all that, so they can, maybe we can contact them, have them present their work here.
That would be excellent.
And I think it would help dispel some of the myths, right? Because there is a lot of, I've certainly heard folks in our neighborhood who don't like the idea of the centers, and there's been a lot of rhetoric around, people who don't want to expand the initiative. And so I think maybe bringing somebody in to really, to give us a real picture of all the services that are offered and kind of what they've seen, because they've been up now for a couple of years.
Since 2020.
Yeah, so.
It's been really rough on my side, and I live on Audubon, closer to the 180s, so not a block away, but fairly close. And I did see enough, and I saw a lot of the evidence. I would see a lot of the needles and stuff, and it became a concern, like a public safety concern to me, and it was after they started. But I do want to say that the past year has been a little better, but I feel that as the locations are important, the locations of the locations are also extremely important. Because let's say in my immediate area, we got three or four shelters put into place at the same time. So when you have a methadone center, the 3 or 4 shelters being installed in your neighborhood, and you have On Point and you have all this, that's gonna attract a lot of And I'm not saying, of course, we definitely need to provide the services so they can get the help and the right care that they need and all that. But when you saturate an area, I think in a short period of time, without knowing the impacts that it may have, it's gonna lead to,
Yeah,
unfortunately, a lot of.
I think what you're seeing is also a reaction to what the mayor had done. Because for some time, these folks were usually used nowhere near the oversight, they're prime places to hide.
Park or something.
Yeah, right. But at some point, the mayor started kicking them out from where they would stay. Like, if you checked under like the bridge from George Washington where the cars go through right by Audubon,
There's a few areas.
they had a complete encampment there. And they would just stay down there. Pick them all up. And so where do they go? They go
They're in
everywhere.
Laurel Hill.
Now they,
I can tell you where they are.
Yeah.
I got assaulted this morning at 6:30 in the morning with a female with a syringe.
What?
Yes, I ended up having to call the police officers, and at about 6:45, I'm here talking to 2 cops.
Wow.
So they're in Laurel Hill on 182nd between,
Yeah, they
182nd between Laurel Hill and Amsterdam Avenue. And just yesterday, just last night in public safety, we were talking about there are a lot of hot spots in this community.
Yeah.
And they are just overflowing. That Laurel Hill has 8 benches. I walk my dog at 6 in the morning, and there are sometimes 2 to 3 people on each bench sleeping. And when they wake up, what do? They start shooting heroin. And
they use the 186 entrance, and it's unfortunate because like the city, we just spent like, I believe it was $4 million in that entrance, right around the pandemic, and it looks really nice. But unfortunately, I walk my dogs there, and I like, yeah, when you go down to the path, I jog there.
Okay.
There's like a path that,
in the High Bridge Park.
correct.
That's
Correct.
dangerous. I wouldn't go down.
I have 2 big dogs, so I.
So do I, 80-pound dog.
But before when I first moved here, I would jog there alone and I felt uncomfortable, so I stopped. But they actually, that's like a hub for them, it's a really hot spot. So we just invested $4 million, but we can't enjoy this as residents, you know, so those are like little things that if we can at least.
If we can assess our own needs and come up with solutions, that would be awesome.
Especially like if we can find a nonprofit that does some of this work, right, then maybe the funding ask is to increase funding for like that specific work in these specific areas.
yeah, there are other programs that actually started running that are supposed to help these folks. It's always dependent on funding. And these are the last people anybody wants to fund for.
Yeah.
So when it comes to budget cuts, you could expect their targets. And we can invite On Point, they can talk about the work they do, what they see is needs. And they can talk to you about their work. They clean up meals, they try to be responsive to any concerns, they have a number that you can call. Sort of like to point out.
I see them every morning and I thank them for picking up needles. But the problem is so much bigger than that,
Yeah.
in all honesty, and yeah.
It's hard to wrap around with.
We need, there are 7 pillars in any functioning society, and we need all 7 pillars working on a solution for this community. And I'm talking about calling on the churches, calling on the business people, calling on the politicians, and laying it out and coming up with a solution. To say, okay, it's a problem and we're just gonna turn away from it and not address it, I think it's inhuman. As a matter of fact, the other day I'm walking my dog and a man is defecating by the side of a tree. Like, that is so inhuman for someone to have to do something of that sort.
My dog ate that once.
Oh my
And
God.
it was in there, I was jogging.
Okay,
So
let me
it's just.
bring back the conversation.
No, it's just just, it's unfortunate that we have to experience it, and that's the only reason
I
why I
agree.
bring it up, it's just so unfortunate.
No,
Jay, I bring it up because we worked hard on this last year.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I don't see it funneling down to the needs of this community.
exactly right.
And I would like this community to be this committee to be much more proactive in meeting the needs of our residents.
I agree with you. Well, this is part of the discussion, right? We're gonna go to Tanisha next, because she had hand raised for a while. I agree with you. The whole point is, I wanna be able to assess what we actually need, what people want, talk about it in an actual thorough way, but also, part of this, we have board staff. 9 to 5, all of us have other stuff we do. I have to respond to emails before 10 a.m. and after 6 p.m. We need our board staff to actually act as well. And that's following up with these agencies.
Our
Like,
general
where are
board?
Ebenezer,
Oh,
Paola, they're paid. They're paid to do this work. They work for the board. And so I think we need more direction on that. And that's part of the problem. I think that's one of the problems. But there's also the problem of how we actually seek out information from organizations. How many are we inviting? You see, I only got one. But there's so many other folks that provide different services around our community that can talk to funding needs, actually the work they do that actually helps the people that live around here. So that's why community organization is to invite, like if you guys have any ideas, if you don't have them right now, but you wanna share them later, I send an email to everyone on the board or the committee, sort of like put us together, hopefully before this meeting. After this meeting ends, we'll talk about doing like a single chat, so we can communicate easier. And then for the budget requests on this item, I'm gonna let Tanisha go. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is something respectfully that I'm gonna say to y'all that I say to a lot of other meetings too. This is a hybrid meeting, which means that you have to remember to engage with the community that's online. I wanted to say something about India's point with the community-based organizations, and then y'all got into another point which led to a whole conversation, and that's how we lose people. Just
Thank you.
saying.
Thank you.
Just saying. But what I wanted to say about community-based organizations, India, your idea is amazing. And I also would like to point out the inequity, because we have grassroots community-based organizations, and then community-based organizations, and then we have nonprofits. And what tends to happen is that the grassroots community-based organizations, they're making $1 out of 15 cents to plug in all of these holes that some of them y'all are discussing, are not even up for discussion when it comes to funding. All right. I know some really good organizations that do a lot of good work and have to squeeze $5,000 out for a year. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. You see how quick that was? And please give thought to my, suggestion of making sure that you're interacting with the people that come here also with their time to interact with y'all, that, you don't lose us because y'all say something, and before you can get, feedback from the community that's with y'all go into something else. Okay? Thank you.
And I just have one more suggestion, if we could possibly get a representative from NYCHA, maybe, we could either have a discussion with them, put forth a resolution. I saw something over the summer, and I have the numbers in my phone, I don't feel like digging through it, but, there's thousands and thousands of vacant apartments just sitting in NYCHA. The waiting list to get an apartment is so long, the people have been waiting for years and years, but yet all these empty apartments are sitting. We don't know the reason. Is it the repairs, or we're doing renovations? What is the reason? We have all these people waiting. So I don't know if we can get someone that we could speak to about that. Put a resolution forth, like get it moving, get it cracking, get something going. So I think that's ridiculous. I think that's really ridiculous.
Thank you.
I'd like to see if we can get some immigration groups or coalitions in here. Obviously, the kind of salient issue at this moment in time, always has been. And we're, if not the number one district in Manhattan, one of definitely the top that are foreign-born, has a high population of foreign-born residents and immigrants. So I'd love to see if we can get some groups in here to speak to that and what they're doing in the community as well, how we can support.
There are also 4 proposals coming up in the November ballot for affordable housing. Where's the information on that?
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, people don't see it until the day of election, and then they don't even know what they're voting for.
And I believe
Thank you for bringing that up.
I believe a few are actually being challenged to removed or something to that effect, so. Great to
Yeah.
get some info on that.
Anybody else? Okay. And then the last thing, the next thing on the budget request, do take a look at the Excel I shared. That's the one that we worked on last year. This physical one, I'm trying to see if they'll be able to send a copy online. This physical one is what we submitted officially as our rankings in the full board. So if you wanna compare them, and at least for our committee section, you can say, what do we know about this? Is it still needed? Do you agree with it? Like, make your own notes so we can actually discuss it at the next meeting. And hopefully, one of the things I've been trying to work on is sort of a form for organizations to actually submit budget requests or budget needs in a sense, so.
Community
Yeah,
organizations?
it's like to give to folks in our community board that do what are your programs, how much are you funded at, what funding pot is that, right? Because we need that type of information to actually list out what we're doing.
The Excel sheet you sent out, it was 1 page. Wasn't the Excel sheet that we worked on last year several pages?
That might be the whole, like everybody else's, like every other committee.
I might have the one that's just our committee, but that we went through. I'll look.
Okay,
It was more pages,
I
right?
think so.
that's the only one I can find in my head.
Yeah, I'll look. I can take a look.
So I just wanted to say that, and then the last thing we have, update on CEP, Indiana, you said you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, so this was something that we talked about, I think in like May or April, and it has to do with like a program that funds home health aides. But before the big change, right, if you knew somebody, for example, it could be your mother or, you know, a family member, a close friend, a neighbor, it didn't necessarily, your care could get funded and state funds, but it didn't have to go through an organization. And last year, there was a big change, and so you could still find your own person, right, and recruit whoever it is that is gonna be helping you, but all of the payment, I guess, had to be funneled through an organization, and they were having just a lot of problems getting both individuals who receive the service and those who are providing the service logged on, having problems creating their accounts. There were several pay cycles where folks were not receiving payment, and so we did a resolution, you know, calling for more focus, more support, right? More help for people who needed assistance creating the profiles, for more flexibility in the timeline so that folks didn't get kicked out of the program. And my understanding is that there has been some progress on that, but I don't have the details of like what the decision is. Do you?
The court case, there was a decision where they extended the deadline for everyone to register and be onboarded to October 1st.
Yeah.
they had an April 1st, was they were never gonna meet and they didn't meet. They were legally told to keep extending it. It's one of the largest programs in the entire country. It serves more people than any other state has that has this program. And they were trying to do it in 4 months. And they obviously couldn't. They were told they couldn't. And there was recently a hearing, if you're interested, that the state senate did. Robert Jackson went to that hearing, our state senator, where they questioned the organization, DOH, and the company that they had chosen, PPL, Public Partnerships LLC. It's a private equity or owned by a private equity firm. They divested, they play with the numbers and say, we're a nonprofit. But they've had so many problems where the workers are also not getting paid on time or being deducted from their pay because of the way they calculate timesheets and whatever new app they're using. And this is a company that has done this program in other states and somehow still fails to run it right. This is who we chose to stay.
That's who New York State chose?
Yes, they went through a whole RFP process. It is assumed that for some reason, and then it was questioned in the hearing. Did you communicate with the executive prior to an RFP coming out?
And
One
how
of
about
the
the other providers?
They were all like, it's basically, there was like 600 companies, turned into one. 600 companies. One company gets all the employees and the patients.
As of October.
Well,
Or
it
it's
started,
already happened.
it already started.
Okay.
There have been, but they had a deadline, like anybody who didn't register gets screwed out, basically. It's done. But they extended that deadline to October 1st, I believe. And there's other stipulations of how they have to do things. But I think it's been impact, and a lot of immigrants actually end up being home health aides. And so like, and they don't pay a lot. And unless you have like a 24-hour case, you're also not getting paid past 13 hours. So there's been a lot of issues on the wages for the workers, and the workers like, I can't work for you anymore even though you need me because I'm not getting paid. And I need money to take care of my own family. So it's been impacting a lot of folks with disabilities. They're very angry. They protested the Commissioner of Health many times where it goes. And there was the hearing was on August 21st, we found it online, and it was 8 hours long. You can listen to it, there was a lot of questions unanswered. I think they're planning to do more.
So how can we help?
We wrote a resolution.
We can do a resolution in support or we can also invite organization that advocates for these folks. One of them is called Caring Majority. Like, they literally they advocate for the workers and that we can use the service. And they throughout the whole process, they were like doing these meetings at night with the people who need the service and the workers, and bringing on the officials that come and meet and hear all the issues that people are facing with this transition. And we're here and they still have problems. They were supposed to be transitioned by April 1st, everything should have been done, there shouldn't be any problems.
So can we invite one of the organizations to come talk to us?
Yeah. They can talk to us. There's Caring Majority is like the advocate one, and then there's the folks who did, like NILAG is the one that filed one of the lawsuits. Legal Aid also did one. There's still some lawsuits on the wages still active. Like there's a lot of lawsuits.
And we can connect with the Committee on Aging too and see if they've got.
Yeah.
Alright. Should we open it up for any other? Does anybody else have any other old business or new business?
I do. moving the meeting to 6:30.
Yes.
Those present are in agreement.
Marshall, is that something that works for you? If we move the time to 6:30 officially? Trying to unmute yourself.
I mean, it doesn't quite work for me because I'm barely getting home at like 6:20. And I need a little time to decompress. But if it's moved to 6:30, I mean I will join it in processing. I mean, that's how that's gonna have to work.
We'll also bring it up to the board.
Well, how do the members feel about moving?
I
Meeting to
I
6:30.
think I personally don't have an issue.
I
with
prefer 7, but I'm flexible.
that. I'm okay.
I prefer 6:30 because during the winter it gets really difficult.
I prefer 6:30 as well.
Okay.
I will say the staff, I think, wanted one of you two to have 6:30 anyway, you
Yeah.
and health, so that would be great.
It's easier for them,
Right.
yeah, Pam.
They said the same thing last year.
I'm fine with it. I have no problem. For me, it's better when it's when we do it in the mornings. So, alright, so we'll talk to, do we talk to the chair? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have anything they wanna bring up? No?
I would, I think the last time, because youth changed their time and they did a formal vote, I think you should do a vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's just do a formal one.
Okay.
You want a motion this?
I motion that we move the meeting to 6:30 from 7 p.m.
Okay, I'll second it, and now let's vote. All those in favor? Say aye. Okay. Opposed?
I oppose.
Me too.
The favors,
Tanisha leave?
the favors have it.
Okay.
That's
No,
how
she's not on
democracy.
Oh, wait, you were yes?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Exactly.
There's one abstain, cause Andrea had emailed before the meeting saying she had a family emergency. She can,
So it's 2 opposed and 4 in favor?
the yeses have it.
Yeah.
Either way.
No, yeah, I got you. But it was 4?
It's 5 in favor,
Okay.
2 opposed, and then Andrea is absent.
Got it. Alright.
If there's nothing else from anyone, I will motion to adjourn at 8:43 p.m.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Radia.
Third, fourth,
Everyone's in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Meeting
Thank you so
adjourned.
much for
Thank you
hanging
for
out.
joining us online, and
Thank
thank
you
you,
for staying.
Cindy. Bye,
Thank
Marshall.
Thank you. It was very interesting for me to listen to the rest of that. And also, I just wanted to maybe interject that ICS does have a substance abuse clinic. And Jay, I know you're talking to Charlie. He knows an awful lot about that subject. So he and Awilda Torres, who's the head of the clinic, but you may just want to talk to him about that too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, take care,
All
everyone.
right. Have a good night, all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Before you guys leave,